Please be seated. Merry 10th day of Christmas and Happy New Year's welcome for 2021. For our family, the week between Christmas and New Year's is a precious treasure. It is, in fact, the one week when those discordant schedules and cycles of school districts and the church year and Silicon Valley tech companies somehow miraculously agree to take a break. For the Doar family, it is the only week of the year when literally everything stops. Now, we used to try to squeeze in a ski trip to the week, but at some point over the years, we began to seize the opportunity to just stay home together and, sort of doodle around our neighborhood. This year, the world was extra supportive of our traditional Doar family do-nothing week because, everything was shut down and we were meant to stay home anyway. Yes, we missed our quirky family adventures, like that year when Matthew took the whole family to explore freeway pedestrian overpasses. And we missed getting together with our friends to ring in the new year too. But you know what? Home was nice too. Matthew and I discovered the location of every sunspot in the house. Secret knowledge that was previously held only by our cats. We moved from one sunspot to the other, savoring our coffee and the paper in the morning one, reading a book and having a nap in the afternoon sunspot. And of course, once the sun has gone down, we settled in on the couch to watch important and deep entertainment like Soul, Wonder Woman, and carols and lessons from King's College. It was wonderful. We did actually make it out the door from time to time. We explored a different 1 mile stretch of the Los Gatos Creek Trail, which happens to run right through our neighborhood every other day or so. We were actually surprised to discover that its quiet beauty was something that can be entered from all sorts of little secret locations that are right there, literally underneath us as we rush back and forth on the roads of our neighborhood on regular days. I'd like to believe that we'll remember this once the pace of life picks up and step out into those spaces again in those times. I sincerely hope that you have had a chance for some of this kind of quiet and renewal during your Christmastide too. But now we're just a few days away from the Feast of Epiphany, and either tomorrow or Tuesday, many of us must emerge from this quiet and this peace. And even if it's back on Zoom, we resume our work and our school and the other myriad parts of our lives. Now, January 6th usually falls a few days after the first work week of the new year commences, which means we often miss Epiphany in all of that shuffle. For this reason, the lectionary gives us an option to use the readings for Epiphany on the Sunday preceding January 6th. I like it because it gives us a few more days to kind of savor this transition and all of the ways that it invites us into new ways of looking at the world. Something that we can do for a few more days before the world just kind of starts moving at its usual breakneck speed. I think Mary might approve of this approach too. At least that Mary that exists in our popular Christmas narratives. You know the one. It's the Mary that we get when we merge those two very different birth stories told by Luke and Matthew into this one neat arc. Now, I realize that neither version really gives the new family much of a break anyway. I mean, after all, Luke hauls Mary and Joseph from Nazareth to Bethlehem to give birth in a stable, and then almost right away turns around and sends them to Jerusalem for the 40 days to present Jesus at the temple. Matthew, on the other hand, lets Mary give birth at home, but then has the family fleeing to Egypt pretty much right away. In our popular imagination, we have painted this all together into a harried trip to Bethlehem on the back of a donkey, no less, a birth, the arrival of shepherds and magi, and the escape into Egypt, kind of squeezed into this almost 2-week period. Poor woman. I mean, she's just had a baby. She's barely had time to heal. And you know what? I doubt she's getting much sleep. She's had to entertain a string of visitors, all while maintaining this placid and beatific demeanor. Art history, well, that just doesn't seem to me to paint it the way things really are. I think that to truly savor Epiphany, we need to slow down. We need to set aside Luke's narrative and just kind of listen to what Matthew's account is saying to us. Those angels in Luke's vision proclaim Jesus as a savior, but only the unimportant people like shepherds and peasants are in on this intel. Luke's good news is meant for the powerless, after all. But Matthew, on the other hand, puts a star up in the sky that can be seen by astronomers, or magi, as our text calls them. It's a star that can be seen from across the known world. Now, astrological phenomena are the ancient Near East equivalent to posting across every possible media channel, "King has been born." Matthew is not keeping it quiet. This is a royal birth, and Matthew wants all of his readers to know. But most important of all, Matthew's gospel makes sure that the powerful are getting the message too. I mean, we heard it today. Matthew has the Magi name the baby Jesus King of the Jews right to Herod's face. And you know what? Those gifts that the Magi bring bear that exact same message. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh, they're both luxury goods and also weighty with the symbolism of both worldly and heavenly authority. Our reading from Isaiah links these very gifts to the coming of the Messiah. Now, Matthew does not mince words. He calls Jesus the Messiah from the first chapter of his gospel. That Herod's move to eliminate his rival fails completely only furthers Matthew's claim that Jesus is in fact the Messiah, the anointed King of the Jews, Emmanuel, God with us. That star that the foreign magi and their kingly gifts have shown us implies that Jesus's birth has both geopolitical and also cosmic ramifications. The audience for Matthew's gospel is Jewish, and for them, the word Messiah is in fact pregnant with meaning. It signifies that Jesus will not only be God's chosen leader, but also a very different kind of king from the ones that they have suffered under. Psalm 72, which was written as a sort of kingly blessing, also seems to lay out God's criteria for the ideal king. Now, you have to read the whole psalm to get the full checklist, but it includes things like be a wise and righteous judge, do justice for the poor, bring prosperity and abundance of peace for all people, defend the cause of the needy and save their children, crush oppression in all its forms, respond to the victims of oppression, help the helpless, pity the weak, protect the vulnerable from violence, and hold all citizens dear. And finally, bless all the nations of the world. Wow, that's quite a list, right? I mean, what a king. Just imagine if our elected leaders did the half of this. You can see why we might need God behind this kind of grand project. God is the one who will stop at nothing less than reshaping the whole power dynamic of the world into one where even the most vulnerable share in its care and its abundance. For Matthew, Jesus is King of heaven and earth, and he's taking on the world's powers and principalities from the very first day. The narrative that Matthew has written is a challenge to all of those who exercise kingship through violence or oppression, that God is come to set things aright. But you know what? Epiphany isn't just about high-level politics. You see, we read these same 4 readings every year. If you take them as a unit, it's like our collective understanding of Epiphany after probably 2 millennia of pondering its meaning for us. And you know what? I think it's clear that we are meant to be part of this reshaping of the power dynamic of our world too. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. Isaiah's text is open. It carries this kind of dual meaning. This light that overcomes the darkness and heralds a new dawn for all the nations. It's definitely Yahweh, but somehow it's written so that we are the light too, or at least bearers of that light. It says things like, then you shall see and be radiant. In other words, all that work that Jesus, the Messiah, comes to do, bringing justice to the poor and overturning oppression, it's our work too. We're a part of it. So how do we do this? Well, I think this year, more than ever, it starts in our homes. I mean, right now, just staying home in and of itself is exercising this kind of compassion and justice and care for the vulnerable that is mentioned in Psalm 72. I know we've been at it a long time now. It's hard to keep going. But staying home is also a Christian act of sacrificial leadership that places the needs of the most vulnerable first. It is living out the message of Epiphany. And you know what? It's just the start of what we are called to do from our homes in the coming year. Now, there's a lot of traditions for marking Epiphany. You probably have special ones that you share in your family. But I want to add one because this year of all years, I think it's especially appropriate that we chalk our doors. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard of this tradition. I see a couple of you nodding. But chalking the doors is a very ancient tradition that people do to remind themselves that the kingly work of Jesus the Messiah is something that starts at home. It's something that is especially important to us as we shelter in place and interact with the world from inside our homes. Chalking our doors, like I said, it's very ancient practice, but it's kind of revived in recent years. It's easy because you know what? You just need a piece of chalk. You can find it. I'll leave some out front at church if anyone wants to grab one. But you mark simple symbols on your door, either above it, on it, to the side, whatever works for you. But you mark the year, the digits of the year, 20 and 21. But in between them, you place the initials C, M, B, and you separate all of them by a cross. 20, C for Caspar, M for Melchior, B for Balthazar, and then 21, separated by cross. It's the year with the initials of the 3 kings, like you might have picked up, but it also is a sign of Christ's blessing. It means that Christ blesses this home, its people, and its work for the coming year. Now, it was traditionally a symbol of Christ's protection on the home. And you know what? We need protection from Christ on our homes in 2021 more than ever. But it was also meant as a sign to anyone who would see it on the doors that God is at work in the world through Jesus and that we are a part of it. I mean, imagine walking around a town and seeing these symbols on doors everywhere that you go. Now, it also is helpful for us because you notice how we go out and in through our front doors more. I mean, back when I only went places in my car and I was going out all the time, I went out that door that went straight to my driveway. But now I go in and out my front door just about as much. If you chalk your door this year, you also will be the ones that are reminded of this calling as well. Now, traditionally, it's left to disappear on its own so that as it fades, we can let its meaning sink into our hearts and our lives. I'm going to chalk the door of the church later in the service at the time of the blessing, and I invite you all to do your own homes sometime between now and Wednesday. If you need chalk, I'll leave it out for you at the church, and also I'll send out the prayer. I want to close this Epiphany, Sunday before Epiphany, with a famous poem by Howard Thurman that I like to read each year for Epiphany. It just really sums it up for me. It's called The Work of Christmas. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and the princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among brothers and sisters, to make music in the heart. Amen.